I am the primary minor metals reporter at Fastmarkets, and with me as a moderator is also Eva Manthey. She's a senior reporter for ferroalloys and with a vast experience in minor metals as well. She's also currently launching a tantalum price assessment. So this is a two-part webinar, and you can join us tomorrow as well for a second part of the conversation. As you might know, we have sent a survey. We have polled the minor metal market participants over the last month to see their views on the future of the industry. So we will discuss the results today with our panelists and tomorrow as well. Also, this is an interactive webinar in which you can send your questions over, and we will do our best to answer as much as possible. And just a reminder that this event will be recorded and will be in demand. And so with us today, we have several experts in the industry. Again, thank you very much for joining us. Let me do a quick introduction. First, we have Donna Vareha-Walsh. Donna is the Global Director of Sales, Global Supply Chain and International Trade Compliance for Indium Corporation. She has more than 20 years of metal experience from numerous roles and responsibilities, and she has recently been elected to be the Vice Chair of the MMTA, of the Minor Metals Trade Association, and she will take over next year. She's based in US. With us, we also have Sean Fuller. He's the Director of Business Development in Asia for Vital Materials. He also has over 25 years experience in the minor metal industry, and his role includes M&A, financing, and strategic planning of the integrated supply chain of Vital. He's a board member of MMTA, and he's based in Hong Kong. With us is also Suzannah Lipmann. She's the Managing Director of Lipmann Walton. She specializes in several minor metals and rare earths, and particularly zirconium, hafnium, and rhenium, among others, such as copper zirconium, germanium, or hafnium oxide. Over the last year, Suzannah has been focused on a particular geographical area, and she has been opening up Lipmann Walton business in Japan with a lot of success. She's based in London. And lastly, we have Dharam Kotecha. He's the Director of Halcyon Metals. Dharam moved to DRC in 2014 to join the third generation of family business, and he aims to make Halcyon a symbol of conflict-free and sustainable mineral trade, from forging sustainable tantalum, tin, tungsten supply chains, and to educating local miners and traders on how to implement practical due diligence. Thank you very much again to all, and let's start the conversation. Eva, do you like to start?
Yeah, thanks, Cristina. We thought we might start our conversation with how the supply side has been affected by the pandemic. And as you can see in the next slide, we asked in our survey, how has COVID affected minor metals businesses? And the majority answer, it was the deliveries that have been delayed and logistical difficulties. It has affected every continent pretty quickly. It spread from China. And I'd like to ask you first, Dharam, about how it affected tantalite supply.
Thanks, Ewa. Thanks for the opportunity. So looking at tantalum supply, especially here from Central Africa, the pandemic has sort of created a perfect storm. There's been a long period of low prices driving down inventories, no fresh material coming in. So when the prices start going up, the demand doesn't really have to be strong. Even a small increase in demand has pushed the prices up, and that's exactly what we've seen. Inventories have been reduced all along the supply chain. And when there was a panic situation with logistical issues in Rwanda, the borders being closed, quarantine, etc., there's been what we feel almost a sort of increased level of buying, which we haven't seen in the past few months. So all in all, actually, for tantalite, I think, especially from Central Africa, it's been quite positive. There's been quite a lot of material available. The split has changed, less from Rwanda and Burundi and more from the DRC, where there are not really many logistical issues. There's also been traders who have a strong footprint in the DRC have no doubt seen increases in volumes. And so generally it's been a positive impact. The other day I was reading a white paper on the change pre and post COVID on 20 metals, including tin, tantalum, niobium. And of those 20, tantalum, niobium were the only two that bucked the trend. I mean, it's an exceptional set of circumstances where if the industry has been hit, demand should go down and prices therefore should go down. It's not really applicable here. So all in all, it has been quite positive.
And how have the prices reacted then? What was the price increase that we have seen since the lockdown has started in Rwanda?
So the prices have ticked up slowly. I mean, I would say we're probably $2 to $3 consistently higher than we were at the end of March or at the start of March. Now around the 65, 66 dollars per pound mark, as I think you'd probably reflect in your pricing also. And it's been positive. It's been quite stable. There's been no spikes in the price. It's been steady. And now we're seeing it staying quite stable. There's not any dips, and it seems to be somewhat sustainable for the moment, especially now Rwanda has also opened up.
And we know the supply diversification is quite difficult in tantalum, as it's limited to one location really, but have we seen any diversification in supply where it's possible in tantalum?
Yes, so as you've mentioned, I mean, I was looking at statistics the other day produced by the TIC. The vast majority of TA concentrate production is still from Central Africa. Then we've got two other players, Australia as a byproduct of lithium mining. There was a false thought that with the demand for electric vehicles, a large amount of cheap tantalum primary material produced from lithium mining would flood the market. This has not yet been the case. It might be possible in future, but the industry is still at its early stages there. And so it's not really a significant contributor to the market. On the artisanal front, we've got South America, Bolivia, Colombia, Brazil, and possibly even Venezuela. While South America has the largest proven reserves of tantalum, the industry is akin to the artisanal industry here in Central Africa 25 to 30 years ago. There is significant scope to grow, however, and we see this especially when Central African ore prices increase. There are more offers of material available in the market from South American producers. Another slightly off-tangent point is columbite from Nigeria and Brazil. As the TA concentrate price increases, there's also a possibility to diversify and buy columbite for the tantalum content. It appears more lucrative, especially if you're getting it for free almost, particularly as many processors and smelters in China are in both the tantalum and niobium business.
And how about other minor metals that rely on China as the main source of origin? Maybe Sean, you would like to answer that? How has that affected those minor metals?
Well, I don't think too much. I think China was quite stable. It recovered from COVID. I think it was March, April. So demand in the world has been down for our minor metals for sure. Supply also was down in line, but the borders, cargo, air freight, etc., all continued to work. So I don't think there was any effect, which is also reflected in your price. Yeah, I think the minor metals have remained very stable.
One thing we found though was, one thing we found though was with moly-metal, which of course is essential for the superalloy industry, being particularly dependent on China as the main source. At the beginning of the COVID crisis in Europe, or rather before it hit Europe, we saw the moly price rise to around $45 to $50 a kilo when the effect of the coronavirus hadn't yet fully reached us, and no one in Europe really realized that the EU wouldn't quite escape. At that point, the predominant fear was, of course, the lack of supply. But of course, the current price tells the story that moly metal is now less than $30 a kilo, amid a total slump in demand from within the EU for superalloy.
And Donna, perhaps you'd like to tell us if you experience, if you learn any lessons regarding supply chain diversifications during the pandemic, Are there any lessons that we learned from this for the supply chain?
Sure, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, a couple things. First is, I'll say I've reflected a lot on lessons learned from the periods of time where we've had disruption before. So from 2001 and 2008, tried to pull on those to make sure that, at least from a company perspective, we protected our company. But some of the lessons or things that we looked at or communicated out were just, you know, understanding that, I guess the biggest thing was when you see a virus like this that hits one country is not to actually think that it could actually impact the world, right? I mean, I remember in January when we were told we can't go to China from the US, you never thought it would come to the US, but you really need to maybe think a little more about what is the potential impact from something like this if it goes global. So I think that was definitely one lesson that I learned, is I didn't even think it would hit the US, right? And I think a lot of people didn't. They just thought it was another SARS situation where it would just go away. I think the most important thing also was just to make sure you keep your customers up to date, making sure that they understand that you have a surety of supply, also making sure that they knew that your operations were working. So for example, Indium Corp was deemed as an essential manufacturing location, and hence then we could communicate that out, and our customers could then count on us and felt very comfortable with their business because they didn't have a change in their supply chain. I think also is that make sure that you assess your weekly with your procurement teams to make sure you understand what's going on in your supply chain and where there's potential chokes. So we meet weekly and we go through every aspect, whether it's logistics, raw materials, production supplies, and or even just services, just to make sure that we understand where any chokes might be. So for example, you have a lot of chemicals that come out of China. So that was another one where we're really focused on, and then making sure that we had either second sources and or started development of other sources where we thought maybe not today, but maybe in 3 to 6 months we might see an impact.
Yeah. And moving into the demand side, we have asked about it in the survey, and there were some responses that didn't really surprise us. We've seen that one of the areas with more potential growth is the 5G technology, following by consumer electronics. Is this something you share in terms of demand for minor metals? Which areas, in your opinion, have the greatest potential for growth post-COVID-19? Susanna?
I think we can all see that obviously in the world of remote, you know, that remote working is here to stay, and that anything related to the internet or 5G related technologies are likely to benefit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And where do you think we stand in the introduction of 5G? Do you guys think that the coronavirus will slow down its rollout? It's something that some people have reflected in the survey, as we can see in the next slide. Or do you think that this is a catalyst for the implementation of 5G, the acceleration? Maybe Sean, you might have a view on this.
Yeah, I don't think there's a slowdown. I just saw yesterday, was one of the pages in the South China Morning Post. China built last year 130,000 base stations across China, and they're going to do more this year, okay? Even with the slowdown, they've already committed to doing that. So there was a slowdown Feb, March, April, the Chinese said, but now they're rolling it out again. And I think we've all learned that we can't easily do without our display, our internet services, working from home, ebooks, movies, Netflix. You know, we all need fast, reliable internet. So I think we just need to embrace 5G. So I don't think every country is going to build the base stations, but China's committed to do more than what it did last year, which is 130,000. It's quite a lot.
I'll just add to that, is in the US, right? We actually found that the wireless infrastructure really grew. So I think that the same thing in the US, it's not this COVID situation didn't stop it. It actually, I think, helped it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in terms of demand for particular metals, for those using semiconductors, I don't know, I'm thinking about the gallium nitride for radio frequency, or germanium for new fiber optic and networks for 5G, or even indium for larger data centers needed to process amounts of data. Do you see an increase of demand in the near term over this year, or is something that will happen more gradually? Whoever wants to.
I would say that we've seen an increase, that the demand is good, particularly for those sectors.
Well, we think that actually silver is obviously not a minor metal, but silver stands to benefit from the growth in 5G infrastructure because of its use in electrical contacts and semiconductors and multi-layer ceramic capacitors. But we've also recently been receiving quite a few inquiries for 6-9 pure antimony, which might suggest an increased demand for maybe indium antimonide. But maybe Donna would be better able to answer whether that is the case or not, or why it should be in greater demand right now.
On antimony?
Antimony and sorry, indium antimonide.
Oh yes, actually, so indium does not play in that market yet. The keyword there is yet, but we are seeing the same increase as well.
Mm-hmm. So there is a good potential for indium and other minor metals and silver as well. Mm-hmm.
And definitely germanium in the fiber optic cables, which are going to be crucial for, to get all the info over to the base stations and back again.
Yeah. In germanium, we have seen also an increase of demand for thermometers with the coronavirus. So that's another application in which germanium has been active lately. Yeah.
And also gallium arsenide is also another compound that seems to be under great demand as well. Mm-hmm. As we see the increase for gallium.
We can expect an increase. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I think there's still decisions on what the final technology, what's the final technology will actually, whether it's a gallium arsenide or gallium nitride. But I think you're seeing both. Actually, you see I can see the demand on the gallium side, but not necessarily the compound side, because we don't necessarily sell.
Mm-hmm. Still yet to be decided. Mm-hmm. And on Eva, you would like to go on smartphones, another sector?
Yeah, so you could see from the next slide, another question we asked in our survey was about demand for smartphones going